Well, welcome everyone. I'm so excited to be able to introduce Casey Ferriello. She is the CEO of Other Parents Like Me, and we're going to learn a little bit about that in our podcast today, more about her mission and how she got there and all of that. I Casey, it's great to see you today, and I'm excited. We had a recent conversation where we got to know your organization a little better. You met some of our team and all of that. And so it just immediately I thought, yeah, we do need to get you here and talk about some things. You're doing some amazing things, and your organization seems to be growing really quickly, which tells me you're filling a real true need. And so that is going to be fun to share with the audience out there. But what I'd love to start with, if we can, Casey, can you? I love your story. I love that we never know why or how our life is gonna unfold well ahead of time. It's sort of doors open and our heart takes us somewhere, maybe our head takes us somewhere. But in the end, it seems like you have landed really where you need to be right now. And can you go through and just share a little bit of the journey of what led to Other Parents Like Me and just your backstory?
Sure. Well, first off, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I felt the same way when I got to meet you and your team. Just felt the energy from all of them. So that definitely means that they have a good leader, that they seem to like what they're doing. So that's a good thing. Um, uh, so my story, I have three children, and rooted in Other Parents Like Me, of course, is my journey with my children. So I have a 22-year-old daughter, a 20-year-old son, and a 19-year-old son. My oldest has struggled since the day she was born with anxiety. And it was something that I didn't understand as a parent. And it just permeated the whole household. She was born with the anxiety, and she would cry when she was a baby for an hour every evening, just releasing it. And so nobody told me as a parent, like, how do you deal with having a child born with anxiety?
Mm.
So that kind of journey was constantly something we re-navigating and relearning. And then my second child, my son, in his high school years, started using substances. And unfortunately, at the core of what, as we've gone through this journey with him, he's the one who is the loudest, because substances can cause the loudest bang in the room with,
Mm-hmm.
you know, running away, suicidal ideation, telling me he was trying to kill himself because of me, overdosing, being in the hospital, multiple times the hospital, individual outpatient program, partial hospitalization program. I mean, like 30-day, like it was just like everything, and it was just chaos. And and the other two were trying to deal with their parts around this chaos. So you can imagine my oldest was at college, and this was really hard for her when he went totally downhill. That she was not home. Not that she could have done anything, but she was not home.
Mm-hmm.
And that was hard for her as well. So, trying to remember the whole story now. Of course, all I was focused on was my son. My youngest is he is off to college, and he has been doing a lot of work around his depression. He was a cutter. He's been in recovery for 2 years now. But that was his reaction to the chaos. Then he hit it like he was the good child.
Mm-hmm.
He was not the problem child. But he's shared now the same thing. When chaos was happening, we sent him off, like, go to this friends, go to that friends, and he shared like that was worse for him not being home.
Mm-hmm.
So in the end, we did follow the path of wilderness, and therapeutic boarding school for my middle son. And actually, we just talked about this the other day with him. I'm very blessed that he's willing for me to be open about his journey, and that's what led me. His program in Arizona, his therapeutic boarding school. He went on to transitional living. He did sober living. Like, it was, 2-year process. He's been home with us for over a year. Um, I'm sure you've heard this a million times. I heard it on your podcast when I was listening to it. The pandemic hit in 2020, life changed.
Mm-hmm.
So we weren't able to go visit him as much because it was 2018, 2009. We weren't able to go visit him. He thought he was going to transitional living. He was going to have all this power. And I felt lost as a parent because I wasn't able to connect. So I started support groups for the program. And
Can I ask
we
a little
started.
bit about that process real quick? So you felt a little lost. And instead of kind of staying there, it sounds like you go to the program and say, I would like to do this?
Yeah, I did. Well, actually, I said I'm going to do this. I had started for our first family weekend. So one of the things that therapeutic boarding schools has family weekends for those who aren't familiar with it, and connected that though our 14 families and knew that I just wanted this to get bigger. Once we were in the next phase, and so those 14 families, and I told, I hope it's okay. It's okay for me to say. Okay,
Yes.
Patrick. Okay, Patrick Barrasso. I told Patrick Barrasso from Imbalance, that's where my son went, that I wanted to do this, and he said, "You're one of the parents I trust to do this," and it was beautiful, Tim. In 2 months, they had their first family weekend. It was virtual, but they had their first family weekend after I started it, and he could see the change in the families.
Mm.
He could see the parents were involved. The therapists were coming to him and saying, the parents are involved. It's not just the kid is the only identified patients. The parents are a part of this now, and they could see the change. And that was that moment where I'm like, why is this not everywhere? We need to do this everywhere.
Yes. I want to talk about that for a second because that is, that's been a growing trend over the last several years. I have to say that in the, years and years ago, there was very little parent involvement in treatment programs. There was almost this feeling of I'm going to send my child away, my teen away, my young adult away, and they're going to go get this help, and they're going to come back to us kind of a different person. And there was kind of a disconnect with the family system and the programs themselves, and okay, they were operating in this kind of isolation, and this it didn't make any sense to me, by the way. As I came along into the field, I was like, what is going on? Why are we not doing a lot more with the parents and the family system? Because I mean, we send teens to a treatment program specifically to put them in a milieu, right? An environment that is really thought out, intentional, with the idea of we're going to create this context where they can grow in and learn and gain insights, etc. But we don't consider that the most powerful context that a person's ever going to exist in is inside the family. And they're going back there, whether they literally go back there or not, they still need these relationships long term, and they're going back into the complex world. So I'm not surprised that as you started these groups and connected them more to not just each other, but the process of that's going on in the program, I'm not surprised that there was some pretty quick evidence that this is helpful. That's fantastic. And were there anything in specific that was coming out of the groups that they were noticing that this is already changing?
Um, a couple things they were noticing was that the parents knew each other.
Mm-hmm.
So when the parents came to the weekend, it was not pods of parent kid. It was all one milieu. Like, the parents were their own milieu, the kids were their own milieu, and so that the kids saw that, oh, look, my parents are connecting like I'm connecting with like-minded kids. And that was powerful for them, which is amazing to me, to
Hmm.
and so that was one of the things. It also they also got visibly the kid. I mean, I'm talking about the kids, like the kids needles. This is how I call this is what I call it. The needle moved more on the kid and where they moved in their process at their program because they weren't having to worry about their parents anymore.
Hmm.
I don't know if you know what I'm saying. Like
Hmm.
there's this thing where the kids, I did bad, I'm here, and like I'm the one who has to fix. And now they're like, wait a minute, my parents, I know I need to be here. I may not always want to be here, but I know I need to be here. My son will say that I didn't want to be there, but I know that where I am now because of being there, which is phenomenal to hear from him. But my parents are their own entity and they're working. So if I'm coming back into the fold at the home, I know that I'm going into a house that's changed.
Hmm. I think that is so fundamental. It almost, whether they're intentionally doing it or not, teens are sort of taking their cue from the parent, and they can do that from long distance. I mean, they don't have to see you every day, but there's something that happens. And what I'm picking up here is that this group process that you facilitated, which had to have been healthy. I mean, you can have unhealthy group process too,
Yes.
but you must have facilitated a culture inside that group that created personal growth for the parents and connection, which is part of growth, right? And the teens picked up on that really quickly, and that helps the overall culture of what's going on. And so, yeah, I've long told parents that they are waiting for your change before they take seriously their change.
Yes.
And
Oh
you're
my
right.
gosh, yes.
And they
Go ahead.
might, yeah, you might remember from my book, I talk about that story of that mother that was struggling and wasn't confident in what was going on. And she sat out there in the wilderness and watched her teen struggle, and at my request, not able to speak with him until he built a fire. And that brings tears to a lot of people's eyes, because as parents, they can really resonate with the struggle of a child and the difficulty that would be for a mother, to hold herself back. But then that, because that was such a change obvious to him, he immediately changed. And that's the process you're facilitating. It's just really a profound thing. Now, this is what led to what you're doing now. So can you kind of connect the dots and other parents like me and how that came to be?
Yeah, so two other moms from the programs they came on along with me. One has faded off into the background, and it's my partner Liz and I who are the champions. And I learned through those 2 years of facilitating what worked, what didn't work. I volunteer and still volunteer for the Partnership to End Addiction. I'm a parent coach for them as well. So I learned new words, new tools, and I all of my support groups that I was leading for Imbalance, and now where we are now, it was focused on a topic. So it was something that connected. I don't know, you're going to laugh at this, but sometimes Tiny Buddha, something that I read in Tiny Buddha, or I'd have them listen to a podcast, like something from you, like, hey, I listened to this one, let's talk about it. And there's something amazing about the parents like getting to process, like it's like a book club, right? You're kind of like
Mm-hmm.
processing what you've read, what you've heard, or you've read a poem. Another person I love is Young Pueblo. I think his writing is amazing, and it's brief, and it's really can bring up great topics. So you're also in our support groups, and where we were before, you're not focused on your child. You're focusing on how you're reacting in the moment to things, but you're with all these other people that somehow those things connect to your child, and suddenly the whole room is all shaking their head yes, and you're
Hmm.
like, oh, I'm so not alone. And that's what parents want. We don't want to feel alone. So that's where I came from. There was, how do I make it so that the world of parents does not feel alone, wherever your kid's journey is.
Hmm.
So I brought 25 of the parents who were with me for 2 years. And they are part of where we are called our peer parents. So they're facilitators. They're in the midst of the chaos themselves. And that's kind of, Al-Anon like, that it's peer-to-peer support. And there's such power in peer-to-peer support. Um, there's such non-judgment in peer-to-peer support, which
Hmm.
connected me to something that Dr. Timothy Smith said the other day in your podcast, about the kids have gotten used to being in a non-judgmental space at their programs, and so this is for the parents to be in a non-judgmental space, and they can then be in a better space together because they know what that feels like. So I was really moved by that one. That what he said. I was like, "That's what I'm doing."
Yes, yes. Well, you are making a huge difference, and this is just maybe talk a little bit about that question I had, because groups are powerful. It's like a tool that can be used for good or ill. And so you have to kind of manage the group in some way and make sure that it is kind of pointing in the right direction, helping families. What have you learned about that what makes for a healthy situation? And if there are any kind of negative things that you have to deal with, that might be interesting too.
Oh, sure. One, all anybody who's a peer parent is trained. They are trained in facilitation, and they're trained in vulnerability, because if they're able to be vulnerable, the group is able to be vulnerable.
Hmm.
They're taught to manage the group when if a group starts to go down into bashing their kid, bashing a program, that to rein that back in. This is not the place for that. This is the place for us. And we have two per group. And the reason for that is that if a parent comes in crisis, because crisis happens, or if a parent is unhealthy in the space, meaning that they are just so stuck in, it's all my kid's problem, it's all everything else is bad, and you're just like totally, they can be pulled out into a breakout space and just talk with a peer parent, because there's most likely, as you know, there's something else going on behind that, and they
Hmm.
just need to be heard, but we want to keep the whole group healthy.
Hmm.
So that's what I learned is really good, is that, and that's what I've trained my peer parents is to, keep it as a safe space, keep it anonymous. Not everybody has to talk. They can keep their camera off. They can name themselves Snoopy, but you're
Hmm.
talking about just being there, the process, and that's really important to me. And that's why we actually do extra trainings every other month with them. Learning new things, just like they're teaching other parents. So that's how you keep. That's how I have found to keep it a bit
Hmm.
healthier.
Oh, I
Um,
think that is great insight. And because we kind of have to do that as parents in a different way. We have a family culture that we're trying to manage the milieu, so to speak, and manage,
right.
how that goes. But we have to model. And I mean, there's so many parallels to probably the facilitators that you have, your parent, what did you call them? The parent
Peer parents.
peer parents.
Yes.
Because in a lot of ways, that's sort of what we have to do as parents, and especially, as they get older, we're really kind of turning into a little bit more of a peer, but we still have a little bit of a leadership role. We still
Yes.
need to be that one to say, okay, I'm going to watch what's going on inside of me, even if they're not, and manage myself so that I can be healthy enough in this moment to support what we're trying to do. So you've got a vision for other parents like me, and you're trying to get there with the families. What would you say is the vision in a nutshell?
The vision in a nutshell is that no parent will ever feel alone, and that as we heal, our family heals. I've seen it with my little milieu in my home.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that the work that I have done, the support groups, because I go to them too. The support groups, I have we have the speaker talks, where we do actually have an expert there, um, and I get to ask questions. Like I staying in curiosity and openness to hearing things that resonate with me and speak to me. That happens all the time. I'm a crier. I will tell full disclosure. That I walk away like, oh, I understood a little more. I understood a little more today. And that is something sometimes I bring up with my kids, like, hey, I understood this. Um, is it okay for me to tell a brief story
Yes,
about
I'd
this?
love to hear that. You bet.
So I'm gonna try not to cry because I already cried with my son.
Well, since you're a
So
crier, we would be disappointed if you don't. No, just kidding.
okay. So my son was sent away on Christmas Eve of 2018.
Mm,
2019 we had to miss because there was other factors going on. Did not get to do Christmas with him. 2020, because of the pandemic,
hmm.
we didn't get to do Christmas with him. So I'm struggling sometimes with him being home. That he's 20. He's 20 and he wants to do his own thing. And that we, just a simple thing of going up away for Christmas to my parents. And he's like, well, I might have to work. And so we sat down and talked about it. Like, we're going to change our plans to be here for you because I never want to miss another Christmas. So there's pain that we feel as parents and guilt. And he said to me, it was what needed to happen. It doesn't mean it didn't suck, he said, but I know that it was what that needed to happen. And I'm with you, and I hear and I appreciate that you shared that missing those Christmases was hard.
That brings a little tear to my eye too. That's tough. And it's nice to feel that almost maybe forgiveness that you didn't really need, but it feels good to know that he's got to that point where he can say that.
Yeah. Who could say that a 20-year-old would say something like that, right?
I know.
That's part of his journey. Like, he's an incredible 20-year-old because of his journey.
And
But
there's
that's what
probably
I'm
a
talking
few, yeah, that's amazing. And there's probably a few parents out there that hope for that may not get that. It may be a long time coming, well beyond 20 possibly. But I like what you said. As we get stronger, our family gets stronger. As we heal, they heal. The family heals. So I love that, because what that puts in my mind is that really so much power is right here within my reach.
about.
And
Yes.
it has to do with my own personal development and my heart growing in the right way, and my ability to recognize my weaknesses and work on them, and to get support, and all of that we're in this together. I
Yeah.
think that's what I love about what you're doing too, is you're bringing people together in a way that um, they are not alone, and that's part of your mission. That there's no
That is
parent
my
that
mission.
feels alone in this journey, and I think it's a powerful mission, and it's something I can wrap my mind around really easy. Uh, I would like the audience to know a little bit more about you and how they can learn more about other parents like me. And can you tell them how to find you? And And
Sure. So it's really simple. It's OPLM. So it's the first, letter of each of the words, OPLM.com. So really simple to find. You can go on there for 3 months just to start the journey. Because I learned and have learned, for example, with my son being in a wilderness program, it took that 3 months for me to get to a place where I was like, first month was, I don't know why I have to do this.
yeah.
Or thank God he's gone. And what are the resources? And what book should I read? So it was like all this stuff, right? And we have resources, lots of resources, thousands, podcasts, and yours is on there. Books, Not by Chance is on there as one of the ones that I read too on the journey. Then you're like, maybe I'll go watch a speaker. Maybe I'll ask a question. I don't know. And then you may go to a support group. So we wanted to acknowledge that it takes time. It's really hard for us as parents. So that's how you do it. And then there's a fee after that, or you can stay free and just go to speakers. That's fine too. It takes time as parents, and that's what we're trying to give space for in OPLM.com. OPLM is for you to dip your toe in as you get more comfortable, and then hopefully once you start going to support groups, you're like, because I know it happened for me. What took me so long?
Yeah. Right. Well, I'd really encourage the listeners to check out your website, go up there and get an experience that they can do without any charge, see how it's going, and see if it can be of help to them. Because I have seen parents, I've been amazed, honestly, at I guess this desire to connect that I see in parents who are in this field that are going through a very similar journey to each other. After they connect with each other at these parent meetings, these parent workshops, and these programs, after they've done that a couple times, what I see, I don't want to tell the teens this, but hey, I say, your parents are actually coming here for the other parents, not just you.
Yep.
Yes, they're coming to see you, but really they're getting this. They're being filled in other really important ways by connecting with these other parents. And so for that reason, I just highly encourage everyone to go check out what you're doing, your website, see if it can be of help to them. I'm confident that it can be. So, Casey, let's talk again down the road, because I think we can get into some really specific topics, and you'd have a lot to share along those lines. But thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for inviting me and having me here, and I'm glad it's okay that I cried.
Well, you made me tear up a little, so
okay.
It's nice to have this video, because I can just see in your eyes the mission. I can see your desire to help. I can see your love for your son. All of that. I guess we do appreciate technology, even though we, sometimes would like to do more things in person. There's something about this. We wouldn't have had this opportunity without it.
Exactly.
So I'm really, really grateful. So all the best to you in your mission.
Thank you. And I look forward to having you come on as a speaker as well for us. So
I look forward to that too. Thanks so much. Take care, Casey.
Okay, you too.
Parents, your time is valuable, and I'm grateful you spent some of it with us. What you're intentionally doing in your home life is inspiring and unmatched in its importance and long-term effects. Ask yourself, what am I going to do because of what I've learned today?